Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After the news you need to know about, we run you through the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. We're at the end of the season. We're going to have a ton to talk about. Breaking down the end of season press conference that Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel did. And there's obviously a bunch of other news we have to get to. So let's get into it. I don't really think there's any we'll start with this because it's the dumbest one. The Dolphins are officially 13 in the draft. I don't remember the last time we were 13 in the draft. I don't remember if that's I remember someone, I don't think it was either 20 something or 19 is an awful number for the Dolphins when it comes to drafting players. So I don't remember what number it was. I don't think it was 13 though. It was I don't remember, but yeah, 13, pretty good spot. You could get a really good player. You really could actually get a cornerstone piece there, because of how the drafts have gone the last few years. Some positions get overvalued and then pushes good players down. So it's a good spot to be in if you're the Dolphins. This is gonna fall into other things, but I guess it's an interesting topic. We'll hit on quick because it does relate to other things we're gonna talk about. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins retaining GM Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel. Now this is I would say the Chris Greer part of it is very controversial. The Mike McDaniel part of it is kind of semi-controversial, I guess, in a way. I don't know. I don't think he should have been fired. I think some of the things that have come to light after the season definitely is a little bit of a red flag. I'm not going to lie to everybody. And it's been speculated upon a lot because of his age and his personality, of how he handles the locker room and how he handles the discipline of the locker room, and the work ethic has been, I think, the biggest question mark of his coaching career as a head coach. Now, when Calais Campbell got here and he did a bunch of interviews during the season and during training camp, he said that that was a huge rumor around the NFL that the Dolphins don't work really hard, and that's the problem with them. But he said when he got to Miami, that wasn't the case, so that kind of fanned those flames down. After the season ended, those flames got fanned right back up. They were very vague about it, about who was the offenders. Even Drew Rosenhaus, who represents a lot of Dolphins and has had a relationship with the Miami Dolphins as an agent for many years, probably over 10 years now, and he's hooked the Dolphins on some bad eggs, including Mike Tannenbaum. And I don't know if he's the most trustworthy person in the world, but he definitely knows people in the Dolphins organization. And beyond that, it's been reported elsewhere as well, whether that's ESPN or anywhere else, that there are certain Dolphins in the building that, and even they said it at the end of the press conference, that their work ethic isn't right. And you know who else hinted at it during the season was Tua, when he was talking about people taking early vacations. I can't remember what press conference that was after the game. It might have been after we'd lost to the Texans, but he said the same thing about people basically giving up, alluding to people not trying as hard or not working as hard. Even in this report about misconduct in the organization when it comes to the players, there was tardiness was brought up, that players were repeat offenders when it comes to tardiness, which is insane. Even Mike McDaniel said, and this is another thing we're going to talk about here in a second, so I don't want to go off topic, but even Mike McDaniel said Tyreek pulling himself out of the game is unacceptable. Another thing to throw on the fire on this one is that it's a player-run locker room. Clearly, that hasn't worked. And, I know that has worked in certain situations, I guess. But for the most part, if you want a consistent organization that wins, that can't be the case. I don't think there's one organization in the NFL, in the history of the NFL, that has consistently been great, that has a player-run locker room. I don't think that's ever happened before. You might have one great team and one great run, but you're not going to consistently be great every year. So that has to be fixed. And I think that is the biggest issue with Mike McDaniel, above all else, is can you lead the locker room and garner the respect from the players and not tolerate that stuff in the organization? And they preach that with the draft every year, which is hilarious to me. And then this happens and all these. So clearly, even Mike McDaniel was admitting it in a press conference that Bradley Chubb, I don't have the quote in front of me, but he had apparently he had a conversation with Mike McDaniel about this very same issue, and he said Mike knows what he has to fix. Whoever these offenders are, which I don't know who they are specifically. I don't know who they could be. I really don't know. Tyreek Hill's probably one of them. I would imagine. Well, Drew Hunter Rosenhaus says it wasn't Tyreek Hill, but I don't believe anything he says. So, when it comes to Tyreek Hill and his belief and his opinions, because he's his agent, for the love of God. So I don't know. It definitely is a problem, and retaining Mike McDaniel, he has to fix that. And I'm not gonna lie to you, and I hate to say this, but normally when things like that get fixed, it's when the coach moves on to a different football team. And I hope that is not going to be the case with Mike McDaniel, but if history tells us anything, that has always been the case. So hopefully he can fix it in Miami. I still think he's a great football mind. And when it comes to game planning, I think he's pretty good at it. And I don't think... he's had some great moments of game planning throughout his career here, and he has consistently, I don't know, I guess not, when you really look at the records, it's the first 11 season in over 10 years. He did do things. We were one game away from being the 1 seed. We would have won the division if Justin Bethel didn't slit it. I still don't. Someone should question Justin. One day I would love to interview Justin Bethel, who recently retired, by the way. We would have won the division. So we scored 70 points in a game. We had the number 1 offense. He built a really fun football team. He made the Dolphins more relevant than they've been in a long time. So, I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, but he has to fix this. This cannot continue, and we'll see what they do. And I think we'll discuss some more personnel things as we go on with this, but Chris Grier, I think, is the one, at least in my opinion, that they should seriously have considered moving on from. I do not like what he said in the press conference, and we're going to get into that here in a second with some of his quotes. He just seems to be like a yes man. Whatever the flow of I really don't know how he has survived as long as he has. He's survived some pretty bad organizations, regimes, I should say. I don't know how he survived it. I will say, ever since Mike, and even in the Brian Flores era, some of his drafts and especially his drafts, I would say, have been pretty good. He's picked some really good players. So it's hard to hate him too much because his draft resume in recent years has been pretty good. But the thing that's held this team back is the offensive line has really held this team back and has never been fixed since he's been here. And even when he tried to fix it, whether he didn't add enough depth or the starting lineup wasn't good enough, he just has never really fixed it. So, and I do think if Tua never got injured, we probably would have made the play. I think we definitely would have made the playoffs because our strength of schedule was the easiest in the National Football League. There's so many games early in the year that we would have won if Tua didn't get injured, and that would have been 3 consecutive playoff performances. So and if the D line wasn't injured, I think the Dolphins definitely would have made the play. We would have been a higher seed. So it's not all organizational issues. Some of it is bad luck. There definitely is some of that going on, though, clearly. But a lot of it was bad luck. Tua missed 6 games. Or 7 games. I think it's 6 games. And and that's on them too for not finding a backup quarterback. It's another thing. Like the arrogance of Chris Greer is absurd sometimes. Like the smugness of Chris Greer is ridiculous. It's like, and honestly, there was not a whole lot of accountability from him in that press conference. It was a lot of, we thought this or thought that. I don't know. It just wasn't like, this was a mistake or that was a mistake. So I don't think anybody's a Chris Greer fan. And clearly, if whatever happens this next season doesn't work out, which I still think the Dolphins have a good roster if it can stay healthy. And hopefully they can add to it. And they have the 13th pick in the draft. There's some really good offensive linemen. They're in a really good spot to trade up to if they really wanted to get somebody special, or if there's a tackle that they really like. So they could do something there. And there are some things that I like what they said in the press conference. I just hope they execute those. And if they do, if what they're saying is true, then the Dolphins have a chance to be pretty good. Especially if they can get some of those things fixed. When it comes to inside the organization with Mike McDaniel in the locker room, fixing the offensive line, and finding a backup quarterback, those are the most important things in the offseason. I don't like Chris Greer as a person. I do think Chris Greer as a draft evaluator, he does have a talent for it. He's very good at trades. He's not all bad. He's far from the worst offensive GM of all time. That's for sure. And there is a reason to keep him around, which is frustrating to say. And I know people don't want to hear it, but it's true. So yeah, the Dolphins are retaining Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel. So we'll move on. There's just so much to talk about. We'll move on from that. I didn't want to bounce around too much because it kind of intersects with some other things. Where do we go next? Okay, we'll go here next because it's relevant. So this is one of the things Chris Greer said that they're going to fix in the offseason. These are some of the quotes from the press conference. Chris Greer finally addresses the offensive line. He said, quote, "That group did nothing but work. It's the hardest working group in the building. We feel like we have some good pieces there. Through week 9, this is all Chris Greer. This is everything that he said. Quote, through week 9 or 10, we were still up there running the ball, moving, playing well. Jackson was a huge loss for us. Once he went down, it was a slow bleed out for the rest of the year, with guys just playing through stuff, being nicked, battered, and bruised." He goes on to say, quote, "I did think we had created some depth. I think the line deserved some praise because of what they had done the year before, and they started the year out well. But unfortunately, injuries got us, and we didn't finish well." He goes on to say even more, quote, "We're going to have to invest in the offensive line now. We're just older there now. So yes, this is the time, like we did a few years ago, this is the time for us to invest in some offensive linemen." I just want to read that. So this quote here at the one that I just read contradicts what he just said. He said, "I did think we had created some depth. I think the line deserves some praise because of what they have done the year before, and they started the year out well. But unfortunately, injuries got us, and we didn't finish well." Well, I guess I'm wrong. I mean, I guess he's saying that. I don't know what he's saying. I would have been, because my problem with that quote is it's just not true. Okay, yes, the tackles were injured, and I guess it's not necessarily a contradiction, but that quote is not true. The guard position is atrociously bad. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They are below average. They are not starting caliber players in the NFL. Watch the tape. By the way, the guards for the most part stayed healthy all year. That was even watch the Texans game. That's the reason we lost. That and Tua, who couldn't handle. Listen, that's a whole nother conversation. But that's the reason Tua was pressured every play, is because the guards are terrible. That's the reason this team can't beat the Ravens, that's the reason Mike McDaniel's record is bad against the good teams. Why we can't beat Buffalo. We lose the trench battle every time we play a good team. It's not just this year. Like he even says in this press conference, he said that the reason they kept the group together is because they played well the year before. That's just not true. This offensive line has struggled to run the football consistently since Mike McDaniel got here. Even when we were the number one offense last year, look at the numbers down the stretch or against good football teams. And just watch the tape. Like, the offensive line is not good at being physical or running the football against good teams in the AFC, against the good the teams that we need to beat to do anything, to win a playoff game, which we haven't done since the early 2000s. So to sit here and say that for whatever reason that you saw and you were satisfied with, whether it was last year, this year, or the year before that, is ridiculous. And his, like, I don't know what it is with him in the offensive line. And he never really, like, he should have gone up there and said, yeah, I've done a terrible job. That if he was honest with everybody, he should just look at the tape. That's the reason we can't win our division. That's the reason we can't beat Buffalo. That's the reason we can't beat the top teams in the AFC, is because we are too undermanned on the offensive line. He just say that, dude. That's it. Just own up to it. Be accountable for it. Clearly, Mike McDaniel is sick of it with some of the quotes that he has had in the media the last month of the year, and even at the end of the end of the year, the press conference, when he literally said during the season that we aren't good enough up front. That is not just this year's problem. That has been the last 3 years' problem. Sign some veterans in free agency, for the love of God. I mean, do something to improve it. It's really the interior offensive line that has been so bad, and they have to fix it. I mean, look at the center roller coaster we've had in Miami, the guard roller coaster we've had in Miami. So it has to be fixed. It's frustrating not to hear him say that, because clearly that's the problem. If we had fired Chris as the GM, brought someone else in who's intelligent and has a brain, they would have said the exact same thing I just told you guys. Like, and any Dolphins fan knows it. I'm not saying anything that's not right in front of everybody's face. Like, fix the offensive line, dude. That's just fix it. Believe it or not, the defensive line and the defense itself is good. It's a good unit if it's healthy. Anthony Weaver, they should do everything that they can to keep him here. And I know that if he gets a head coach offer, obviously he's going to leave. Hopefully the Dolphins can pull something similar to what the Lions did with Ben Johnson, even though he wasn't getting great offers anyway that he liked. But do everything that you can to retain him, because he's a phenomenal coach. He's the best defensive coordinator we've had since Brian, and which has been a problem because that's also a revolving door since Mike's been here, and it would be nice to have continuity at that position. And I think the personnel that is left on the roster, especially on the front seven, could be something special if they can get healthy. But this whole offensive line thing, it just really sent me up the wall as a Dolphins fan, and almost made my head explode, because it just doesn't make any sense how they never improve upon it. Even though last year, when we were the number one offense, it was still a problem. It wasn't not a problem. We got blown out by the Ravens. We couldn't win the line of scrimmage against the Chiefs in London. The playoff game against Kansas City is a great example. Watch every Buffalo game that we play against Buffalo. Like, every one of them. And you know what? Mike has always done a phenomenal job in protection plans. His protection game planning has always been really, really good. And it would be even better if he could do... The man was the run game coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. He hasn't been able to establish that here in Miami because of the low... what's the word I'm looking for? The personnel isn't adequate enough to do what Mike McDaniel wants to do. It's been that way since he's gotten here. He hasn't had any tight ends. He hasn't had a good interior offensive line since he got here. It's been below average. So maybe start tailoring the roster to what Mike McDaniel was hired for anyway, which was because of his innovation in the run game in San Francisco. For the love of God, it blows my mind thinking about how he's handled the offensive line. And it, honestly, if I was Stephen Ross, I'd be like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about, but I would have fired him. I couldn't handle stuff like that. Hopefully, this team or the Dolphins fix it. Similar to what the Cowboys did with Zach Martin, or what the Colts did with Quentin Nelson, and it kind of completely turned everything around. Fix it. Hopefully they fix it in the draft, and we can all just move past this problem that has been an issue for years, dude. Since even like before the 2019 season, when all of this kind of happened, after the 2019 season, even before then, this has been an issue. To the Jesse Davis days, for the love of God. I can't handle it anymore. I'm sick of getting owned up front. And I'm sick of that being the reason why we can't go further. And, accentuate what Tua does well, which is throw from the pocket. Get him a good offensive line. Accentuate what Mike McDaniel does well, which is running the football, innovating in the run game, and having people that can execute that. And I know that, it hasn't looked great because the personnel has been so bad. Look what Greg Olsen, I thought his commentating was so pitch perfect on why the Dolphins struggled this year, about people not being able to block on the second level, and how the effort was bad, and how the execution was bad. All of it was bad. And he even pointed out, if this one block happened, if someone just touched the safety, this was a huge run that was missed. Huge missed opportunity. And it's stuff like that needs to be fixed. And I'm glad that he's saying that we're going to invest in it. Even though it sounds like he's reluctant to say it, it doesn't sound like he's enthusiastic about it. I'm glad that he said that, because it's obvious and he should say it. He's the general manager of the team. If he can't see that, then he's not a good general manager. My God, dude, it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. So let's move on from that fiasco of a quote. So let's go to the next news story. This is we talked about Anthony Weaver. I hope that they can retain him. He is the Saints request head coach interviews with Anthony Weaver, and I believe the Bears did as well. This is all going to be one combined thing. Okay, we're going to start. This is the Tyreek Hill. We haven't even talked about Tyreek Hill, so we'll start with how it happened, and then we'll tackle the fallout of it. So, okay, this is my opinion on it. Tyreek Hill pulls himself out of the game against the Jets, which, by the way, that Jets game, we're not even going to talk about it. It was one of the worst games to watch as a Dolphins fan ever. Like, it gave me a migraine. When we hit the third quarter, my head hurt so bad. I was like, I almost have to turn this off, which I have never thought. I mean, I've thought that sometimes. I mean, the Brock Osweiler games were really bad, but this was in particular, like almost my head exploded. That's how bad it was. So yeah, Tyreek Hill, I guess, had the same feelings and was like, I'm out. Okay, which is ridiculous because you don't do that to we're paying this man so much money to play football. Finish the game, dude. You're playing a kid's game, for God's sakes. Just finish the game. I don't care if we're not making the playoffs. Just finish the game, okay? You worked all this year. Everybody's working hard, putting their bodies on the line. Go out there. The fans are taking time out of their day to watch this game. Some of us are taking their time out of the day to watch Tyler Huntley throw the football, okay? God forbid we would want to watch the player that is one of the highest paid players on our team play football. It's the last game of the year, dude. It's just ridiculous how athletes are sometimes. Very selfish. And that was a very selfish thing to do. And I'm glad Mike McDaniel wouldn't let him back in the game. And I'm glad that he had a problem with it. And so let's move on to this, because this is a whole fiasco and a saga in itself. Chris Greer said he had a meeting with Tyreek Hill and that a trade was not requested. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. I honestly doubt that Chris Greer is going to sway Tyreek Hill to do anything. Out of all people on the planet Earth, probably only God could tell Tyreek Hill what to do. And you know who couldn't is Chris Greer. So who knows what I don't know what kind of meeting or conversation that they had, but I'm sure it wasn't as positive as that. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Tyreek Hill committed to the Dolphins. Drew Rosenhaus did an interview on the Pat McAfee show. I'm sure every Dolphins fan on the planet has seen it. After Chris Grier said, again, this is the article from Pro Football Rumors. After Chris Grier said Hill did not issue a trade request, Hill's agent Drew Rosenhaus indicated during a Pat McAfee show appearance that his client is, quote, committed to the Dolphins. This comes after Hill had a productive meeting with Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel. While Hill has displayed some erratic behavior over the course of his career, the situation appears to have settled for the time being. I don't know what's going to happen with Tyreek Hill. I honestly I've said this many times. I kind of expected him to leave after this year. When he signed the extension, I was like, okay, maybe not. It doesn't really make any sense anymore for the Dolphins to get rid of him or trade him because that's $28 million of dead cap. They are not in the situation to be having to deal with that. I would much rather him play this year on the Dolphins than paying him to play for another team. So regardless of what I'm about to say, I do think it's the smart thing to do to keep him. If they can do it. Now, if he's going to be this migraine of a headache, then they're going to have to just pay the $28 million to get him off the dang team. But the facts are the facts. Drew Rosenhaus also said on the Pat McAfee show, if you watch the interview, that a doctor told him that he had broken... Okay, first of all, let's start here. I'm getting way too ahead of myself. He broke his wrist in a joint practice versus the Washington Commanders. A doctor told him he is going to miss the rest of the year and he has to have surgery on it. He played through it, okay? God bless Tyreek Hill, he played through it. A lot of people have to do a lot of things to make money. But, God bless him. He broke his wrist. He's playing through it. Doesn't even really have to practice. But, yeah, he's trucking. Anyway. And he's having 5 kids. Like, it's a whole nother camera. Anyway. So, he's playing through it. And my thing is, when I heard that, first of all, not only did I almost roll my eyes back so hard that I almost lost them, that here's my opinion on it. If it was a financially good decision for the team to trade him, I'm actually for it. Even if they got a 3rd round pick for him, whether his wrist is broken or not, doesn't matter. He was clearly not the same player he had been a year ago. I do think him not being as locked in was a huge factor. Clearly, he was not the same focus that he was the first 2 years that he was here. The second year, he was really locked in because I think not only was the team successful, but his numbers were clearly, that's why he was zoned in, as zoned as he was with the 1,700 yards. Could have won Offensive Player of the Year. The first year, he was locked in too. This year he was not locked in. He looked slower. He didn't look right the entire year, and he's in his 30s. His best asset is his speed. His hands are terrible. Even before the broken wrist, he had a lot of drops. So if he wants to blame that, then I don't know what the heck. Let's just look at the. He dropped two touchdowns against the 49ers. He just doesn't look the same. He never has fit this scheme. Ever. God bless Waddle. He doesn't fit the scheme either, which is a problem because I've said this for years too. They have to really tip their hand with personnel changes because neither one of them can run block. They're really not physical or really that great after the catch either, especially with Tyreek Hill used to be great after the catch, but he isn't anymore, and that's very clear. So that part of it, he's not great. The reason our screen game was elevated is because of Jonnu Smith and Devon Achane. Those are the two reasons why our screen game is good. If we throw a screen to Waddle or Hill, it's probably not going to work. Just watch Deebo Samuel take a screen in the same offense. You have to make somebody miss, and Tyreek Hill especially. Honestly, it ain't happening. You can even there have been so many posts that he's caught that he has had one-on-one, and then if he makes that guy miss, he's going to score, and either he's gotten caught or tackled, which is not normal for Tyreek Hill. So, those are all things that lead me to believe that he's probably past his prime. And if he's going to be this much of a headache and go off the deep end, because clearly he has a lot of things going on in his personal life, then it's time to move on. He literally said on camera he doesn't want to be a Dolphin anymore. Okay, dude, goodbye. Like, I loved everything that Tyreek Hill has done for the Dolphins. Has been a great joy to watch. It really has been. He was the number one player on the NFL's top 100 list. He was a first team all pro player for us. He was phenomenal. Him and throwing two of them touchdowns, it was all great. And that's awesome. I mean, I think, if that's it, dude. It was a great 2 years. And I will gladly wear his jersey. I wish a part of me, I mean, if this never happened, with the whole press conference thing and his antics off the field, I would have wished he would have retired a Dolphin, regardless if his play had dropped off or not. Because I think what he has done has meant so much to the fan base and the franchise that it would be nice if he retired in those colors. But if this is how it's going to be, dude, and he wants to pull a Terrell Owens and Antonio Brown at the end of his career, then I don't want to deal with that as a fan. He can move on and do whatever he wants with some other franchise. But the facts are the facts. He is not the same player he used to be. He's never been a scheme fit. And so, yeah, what are we doing? And we're paying him a ton of money. So this is just, this is just something that they're going to have to figure out. And I think the worst outcome of this is that it's the dead cap is what really is the financial part. I think that's the thing that's going to hit the Dolphins the hardest, which is weird because I thought that he didn't have a ton of guaranteed money left, but they decided to extend him recently, and I'm glad that they need to try to salvage as much as they can. And even if he stays, this is a bad thing I'm about to say. This is not great. I still think the Dolphins need to do something at the receiver position, even if he stays. So that's not good, because the way he looked on the field this year is alarming. And dude, I wish someone with some balls would have been in that meeting room instead of, God knows, they kissed his feet. I would have been like, dude, you want to talk about us not being good enough for you? What about you being good enough for the team? You played awful this year. Like, you do realize that. I mean, you really did, dude. I don't know. Obviously, you're not going to be able to expand your game. He is what he is at this point. Like, I don't know what else to say to him other than, like, dude, like, it was I mean, dude, you were a part of the losing. So, and another thing, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of teams played single high safety against us. It wasn't like they were doing the too deep. No, the single high. A lot of teams played single high against us at the end of the year. Tyreek Hill was on the field. I'd be like, hey, well, where's the cheetah at? Because we haven't seen him. I'd rather have Ricky Pearsall on my team right now, who fits the scheme and isn't as talented, but is going to probably be more productive at this point in his career. It's just like, dude, like, what are you even talking about right now? It's just like Tyreek Hill. Now he's giving me a dang headache. This next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Titans request GM interviews with Reggie McKenzie. Reggie has worked as an executive for Miami. He's the Dolphins' senior personnel executive. He's really good friends with Chris Greer. His draft resume as a GM is like okay. It's not very good. He's had some great moments and he's had some really bad moments. But everybody loves him in the NFL. He's done actually pretty good here in Miami ever since he signed on here. I'm sure he would have liked to have invested in the offensive line more than we did. He was a former offensive lineman. So if he leaves, I do think he's going to be missed because he has done a good job. And for the final news story, which is the cherry on top of the sundae, okay? Like, this next news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins to prioritize backup quarterback position. Dude, this is the last thing. It's like, yeah, it's good to hear, but it's honestly the last thing I want to hear. Because it just is like, no, yeah, we know, dude. We all know. You guys are professionals, being paid millions of dollars. What are you guys talking about? We know. You guys should know it too. So, Chris Greer on Tuesday. Okay, here we go. Here it is. Okay. Dolphins general manager Chris Greer said on Tuesday that the team was pursuing a, quote, couple of top-flight backup quarterbacks during last offseason, per Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald, but couldn't finalize any signings due to salary cap restraints. Instead, they had Thompson and White compete for the backup job in training camp. Okay. Do I believe that? No. No, I don't. I don't really even remember what Fields ended up signing for. That was a trade. So I don't know what that's just something that they could have done for sure. And Mike White, who they signed 2 years ago to a pretty expensive contract, who he did nothing as the backup quarterback for us. And everybody and their mom, like come on, dude, like even in training camp when everybody was watching them, both of them throw, it was apparently like atrocious, which we obviously know that. We had to watch it, and like I can't even speak. That's how annoying that is to say. Like, yeah, we tried, but we couldn't. It was too much money. I should have pulled names up because I don't know if this is necessarily true. I mean, we're gonna have just very similar restraints this offseason. So I don't know. Maybe they address it in the draft in the second round, which is what I'm hoping that they do. Maybe get someone like a Jackson Dart or even Jalen Milroe in the draft, who's a prospect but physically is really special. I don't know. I figure it out. Darrell Bevell is also interviewing for offensive coordinator positions. If they were able to retain him, that would be great, especially if they do draft a young quarterback, someone like Jackson Dart, like I said, or Milroe, who's more of a project. But I think that, they've got some good coaches that could mold them into good players, especially in this system and how creative Mike McDaniel is in the run game. A player like Milroe would be pretty fun, and even if he is the backup quarterback to Tua, they could do some really cool stuff with him in the run game and even in the red zone. So there's some really cool possibilities there. I hope they address it in the draft. I'm pretty sure Milroe, I don't know if he'd be a second or third. I don't know where he's projected to go. But yeah, I mean, it was the most Captain Obvious press conference of all time. And there was no accountability from Chris Greer. Mike McDaniel looked like he was so stressed out and that he was going to pass out. Yeah, like it was a miserable season. It was a miserable end of the season. It was miserable. It was bad football, especially when Tua was hurt. It was really, really difficult to get through. And it was a lot of drama off the field, which is just a recipe for a really bad fan experience. And hopefully that they can fix it. And I don't think Mike McDaniel is the problem. I do think Chris Greer has a lot of issues. He's definitely a snake in the grass. The man has been dodging bullets for over 20 years. Okay, and you got to be good at some kind of grimy activity to be able to do that, especially in the NFL where people get fired left and right. I don't know how he has survived. He's survived Adam Gase and Mike Tannenbaum, which is unbelievable. Anyway, my head hurt. Like, and I honestly, I was like, dude, I need to I need to take a break. Like, I can't read anything. I just gotta stay away from it for a while. That's how annoyed I am with this team right now. And, I just, I don't even want to speculate on, oh, they could do this or that. I don't even let us just get there. All right. At this point, it's just like I said, it was the most Captain Obvious. Like, yeah, we know, dude. You know what? We might as well have not even showed up. Like, what are we even talking about right now? Anyway, that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed it, or at least I hope you guys. This is one of the longer ones we've done in a while. And I think we covered everything, and I'll see you guys in the next one.